everyone, so I thought I would do a quick tutorial to show you some of the more detailed techniques used to put these guys together. I'm going to be working on Skye today, and these are all her parts, but I've also got to show you my work in progress on Whitney, who's going to have a custom outfit based on the Isabel outfit. So this is her tail and the base of her outfit here. And also Bones, who's also a basic commission. He's going to have his traditional outfit, so I'm starting with a yellow base and I'll put the brown on top. So here's all the pieces for Skye, and you can see I've made her face already, or most of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is to glue on her ear liners. Now I do use glue occasionally, I prefer to stitch where possible, but in this case it makes sense to glue because these parts need to be quite strong to be able to stand up. And I'm going to use a special joint to connect her head to her body. It's called a wobble joint, you can see why. It allows the head to wobble nicely. And I'm just going to insert that into the top of the head there. Now this is if you were to make these figures without clothes. I'm actually going to pull this joint apart in a moment. But first you put on a wooden disc. So there's two pins here, this is onto the second pin. The first is already sunk inside the head. Then you need a metal washer which you would put on top of that. And then I'm going to use pliers just to roll down the legs of the cotter pins. Like so. Now you don't want them too tight because you do want it to be able to wobble, but you also don't want to be able to see too much of the metal outside of the body. So make sure you pop that in, check that it's not too loose, and if it is, just tighten it a little bit with the pliers. So that's the right level of loose there. Now of course I'm going to have to pull that apart because I want her to be dressed. So here she is separated. Now the way that I tend to do this is I actually put the outfit onto the head first and then put the body inside of the outfit, which does feel strange but it works a lot easier than attaching the outfit later. So push the pins of the cotter pin back through the outfit, like so. And then I use normal pins just to hold the outfit in place on the head so it's not getting in the way before putting the body back on. And I just used a ball pointed owl here just to push a little hole in just to make it a bit easier because obviously the cotter pins have already been bent so they're a little bit wonky. So pliers just to hold them in place and slide that body back on. So from this point on it's exactly the same as previously. There's the two legs of the pins. We've just got to put those through a wooden joint disc first, then the metal washer, which I've lost. Now the metal washer just stops the points of the cotter pin from scoring a line through the wooden joint, so this is meant to make this a long-lasting piece of work. So roll the legs back down, make sure that they're resting on top of that metal washer rather than the wooden disc, and then pop the disc back into the body once you're sure that it fits. Pins out and roll the outfit down just to check maximum wobblage. So this just needed tightening a tiny bit. Excuse my head getting in the way. I'm filming using my iPhone resting in a lamp. It's a very high-tech kit. So now I have to stuff her, and this takes quite a while just to get everything even. The best way I find is to stuff the furthest points first, so here I'm just stuffing a little bit up to the neck just to give it some strength. And then I found as well wrapping the stuffing around the blades of the pliers like that, it makes it easy to get into small spaces like her feet, like so. And then the rest of it is fairly simple, it's just packing the furthest away parts first. You'll find that if you don't do this, it's harder to get stuffing into those places later, obviously, because you've got other stuffing in the way. So what I tend to do is partway through I'll switch from using my hands to using something like a rubber-tipped pencil, or in this case a screwdriver, and that just makes it a lot easier to get a nice firm stuffing into your animal. You don't want loose stuffing in these guys because they'll collapse, the stuffing will shift and it would make them feel lumpy. So actually you want them to be quite firm. So the piece of stuffing that went into her was about the length of my forearm, just to give you an idea of the scale of what we're talking about, just into that little tiny body, which is the length of, maybe not even my hand. So there's the last little piece going in. Make that last piece nice and flat so that it's easy to do a ladder stitch. Now you want extra strong thread. Unfortunately I only have white and then browns, so white's the closest colour for Skye. So I tend to lock off my thread by doing a small stitch, like so, and then another one, and then I push the needle back through one of the stitches, through the actual thread itself, and that holds everything nicely together without there being a lump underneath the fabric. And then this is a ladder stitch, so you're just going to put the needle in and out on each side of the fabric, and the idea is to make crossing pieces of thread that look like rungs on a ladder basically. Now I also put a little ribbon tag into my doll, so it's important for me that this part is nice and neat. So I get it up to about this point, and then here is my little tag which has my name on it, just so that you know that it is one that was made by me, and certainly that it's a commission as well. And then the needle's going to go through one side of the ribbon, and then I'm just going to carry on with a ladder stitch as normal. And then back through the ribbon again. And that means that when I pull the ladder stitch tight, it will tuck the ribbon inside of the body, and it will look like a proper toy maker's tag, which obviously is the aim of the thing. So just a couple more stitches just to finish it off. And one stitch back on itself just so it's got a nice point to anchor from. Pull it tight, sorry that was off camera. But you can see there that it makes a nice neat seam in the felt, and everything, all the stuffing is hidden and nicely tucked away. So just snip off the extra bits of thread and then check how that outfit is laying on her body. It's looking good, so just a few little bits of trimming needed just to make the outfit neat and to get rid of any threads inside of the body or inside of the shirt that are going to cause problems later. But she's nice and neat. So this is the outfit, and I'm going to complete this one mostly with coloured pens. I have done ones in the past where it's stitched, but with this one, because there's quite a lot of shading actually in those flowers, I decided to use a pen instead, and I'll heat set these later so that hopefully they don't shift. So I'm hand drawing on all of these pieces. Another good reason to do this is that the outfits that I make are actually curved. You can see the stitch line there, which is part of a seam. It's part of a dart that makes the outfit fit the bodies properly. And so to sew this on with a machine is actually quite difficult, especially with the armholes getting in the way. And I always just do one example of the decoration on the back. I don't tend to do the full out decoration just because it's a lot of detail, a lot of time, and I prefer to finish it that way. Little yellow dot for the centre of the flowers. And then the outfit also has a green zigzag line, and I just kind of eyeball things. I find that I can fudge lines like this so that they fit properly. Obviously I'm not going exactly to scale, but you can see there that that fitted fine around the body, and so that's her little outfit done. Looking pretty good. Now my next step is to line around the details on her body. You can see that I've used like a cream felt just to make the patch that's on her head and to make her cloud-like muzzle line as well. But that has a beige line around it in the game, so I can add that here now. And just pin her ears in place now that the glue has dried. Pin them in place so that they firm up in that position, and then I'll stitch them together later on. But for now I just want that glue to set in a nice curved shape. And you can see the side of her head has little spikes as well, like the game does. So more stuffing now, and that's to stuff and complete the arms. So same thing again, wrap it around itself just to make it a nice neat little bundle, and pack it into the tops of the arms and then into the bases. I learned all of this technique, by the way, from making artist teddy bears. I learned it all from the internet. It's something I've been doing for nearly 10 years now. This is nearly my 10-year anniversary, which will be Mother's Day. So these are all techniques that I've learned from that. So just the same thing, a ladder stitch just to close it off. And then I'm going to do a very small stitch in the joint here. These creatures that I make are thread jointed, which is not the strongest of joints, but it is the only one that really makes sense with this scale of animal. You can make them stronger by using a button on the outside of the arm, but people tend to not like that look so much because obviously the button is visible. So this is the best alternative, is to use extra strong thread and to stitch it through multiple times. Which is what I'm doing, so I'm passing from one side of the arm to the other, making sure that the arm will have the seam facing towards the back when the arm is down. Take it back through that little patch of the arm and then put the thread back through in a similar position to where it went through the first time so that the arm can turn itself. And then lock it off in the socket where the next arm's going to fit. If you were using a button, you could sew arm to arm, so you wouldn't have to do this step. You could just go straight from one arm through to the other, through to the next button, then back out and attach another button. So one more arm to be stuffed. I'm glad not to have to do legs on these because I really hate stuffing arms and stuffing legs, just because it's repetitive. So same thing again, only this time I'm going to make sure that I put that right through the previous dent from the stitching on the other arm, and I'm going to make sure also that I push the needle back through there and that it comes out underneath the previous arm. If you bring it out in the same place, what happens often is that it pulls the stuffing too close together and it means that the first arm goes loose, and so you lose that nice jointed feel. So here's the needle coming through below the previous joint, checking that that arm's okay. So lock it off as per usual and snip the thread. And then you'll find that that arm just naturally is a little bit looser, so what I use is the ball pointed awl just to move the stuffing around inside the body again and to give it that stronger feeling joint. Sorry, she's a bit close there. Takes some strength to move the stuffing around, especially when you've got loads of extra strong thread in the way. That's hair back to normal, and arms are nice and mobile. So now I need to stitch the tail on, and it's basically a very, very similar way of doing it. So stuff it, stitch it up with a ladder stitch, attach the thread to one end of the tail, lovely little ladder stitch there, pull it tight, hide the stitches. So lock it off, pull the thread to the end of the tail and lock it again. If you don't do this second lock, what happens is when you pull the limb, or in this case tail, tight to the body, it tucks it in from the point where the thread was originally, and it makes the whole thing curved or saggy, and it doesn't look good. So unfortunately this bit was out of focus slightly, but basically I'm just stitching it on using, I guess, almost like the ladder stitch again. So one stitch within the body, one stitch within the tail, and around the side so that it's held on nice and firmly. And because it was out of focus, I'm going to speed through the first system of me attaching the ears. Thankfully there's two of them, so I can show it to you again. So here you go. So essentially again, very repetitive, you lock the thread off. And then I'm going to do, it's almost like a ladder stitch, but I'm going to be careful to make sure that the needle doesn't go through both the blue and the pink felt on the other side, because obviously I don't want those white stitches to be visible. It would be okay if you had matching extra strong thread, but I do not have matching extra strong thread, I just have this white. So same thing, little ladder stitches, take it right up to the tip of the ear, make sure that that tip of the ear is really, really firmly attached, because if you were to hold the toy by the ear, that could potentially start to lift off there and to split the felt. And then lock it off. If you had a double-sided ear, like you might see on a squirrel or a mouse character, then you would also stitch around the front, because there would be two seams of felt to attach, but not so with these guys, because of the way that I designed the pattern. So that's both ears are now attached, and you can see no visible lines. We also need to attach the mouth, and this is using a technique called needle sculpting. So you can do this more easily without the head attached to the body, but I'd forgotten to do it earlier. So use an extra long doll needle. I'm just going to mark on using a water-soluble pen, don't worry, a little line where the mouth is going to go, just so I'm sure that it's even. I've locked it into the neck, and now I'm going to pull that thread up through the mouth and lock into the corner of the mouth as well, just for security. Then I'm going to push from one corner of the mouth to the other, and making sure that it's even, so I wasn't too happy here, so pull it back out, lift it up a tiny bit so that it is even. And those are the corners of the mouth. And then I'm just going to pull the thread up and over. Now if you did this, it would just slip back down to the chin, so we're going to use the thread again from the middle of the mouth just to hold it in place, and draw one extra loop over the top of the thread to hold it before pushing it back down to somewhere where it's hidden. This was hard with the body attached, that's why you do this before. Make sure I'm happy with the tightness and then lock the thread off. So you can see that that tiny piece of thread has given that mouth a really three-dimensional feel, whereas just drawing the mouth on would make it feel quite flat. And if you want to, you can use more lines to make more of a curvy mouth, but Skye seems to be mostly photographed with the mouth open anyway. So I'm going to use just a beige liner, the same as I used to line her face earlier, just to make sure that her mouth looks like it's got a bit more depth to it. There she is. Now there is one thing missing, and that's white patches on her hands. I don't tend to use felt for these because it makes the hands too three-dimensional. It makes it really, really hard to turn them around, and then the felt tends to come away anyway because of the pressure. So just a little bit of water and a little bit of paint. I'm going to paint white patches onto her hands here, just fading up through the felt. And you have to do this a couple of times usually because obviously the water-based paint soaks into the hands. So there's her hands, and her little feet also have white patches on them, as does her tail and the tips of her little mane. So unfortunately the video cut off. This is all I can show you, but I hope you've enjoyed watching some of the techniques that I use to make these animals. So thank you for watching.